Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for tuning into this week's recap of the Lansing Watchdog, your trusted source for small business news. As always, I'm Francesca Rocco Ellis.
And I'm Jacob Manning.
And getting us started today, Jacob, what can you tell us about what's going on with the budgets in Lansing?
Yes, so last week, lawmakers in Lansing took major steps towards shaping the next state budget and reignited a familiar debate over legislative pork. On Wednesday, the House passed its full budget, and the Senate will be working on theirs this week. Last Tuesday, the House Appropriations Subcommittee advanced a spending plan for the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which includes many of the programs we advocate for at SBAM. It also sets aside $145 million for locally directed projects, formerly known as the Legislative Spending Transparency Fund. This is a chunk of the budget commonly referred to as PORC, which is funding that goes towards local, in-district projects, often to repair public infrastructure. And while the term raises eyebrows, supporters say that this year's process is very different from those in years past. House Speaker Matt Hall has required lawmakers to publicly justify every project through an extensive hearing process. Instead of last-minute additions like we saw in last budget cycle, all requests are now moving through the House Labor and Economic Opportunity Subcommittee, chaired by Representative Nancy Jenkins Arno. The money for this spending comes from unused economic development funds, and lawmakers are also redirecting more than $200 million back to the state's general fund. Beyond the local projects, the broader budget proposal also tightens overall spending. The plan cuts nearly $280 million in total funding, trims about 200 state jobs, and eliminates or scales back programs that haven't fully been spent in prior funding years, including arts, grants, and mobility initiatives. Meanwhile, lawmakers boosted funding for workforce training and tourism through the Going Pro program, funding it at $40 million, and the Pure Michigan Tourism Campaign at $20 million. Once both chambers pass their full budgets, lawmakers will wait for next month's consensus revenue estimating conference, where we will learn the final state revenue number for the year and lawmakers will know how much money they have available to spend. SBAM's advocacy team is hosting a special briefing webinar on May 12th at noon to discuss all of our budget priorities. SBAM members are free to join, and we'd love to see you there. Back to you, Francesca. What can you tell us about a survey on housing?
Absolutely, Jacob. So, according to a survey of more than 1,000 registered voters, 61% of Michiganders say the state needs more homes and that regulations should be changed to make building easier. The polling was released by Americans for Prosperity Michigan, which has thrown its support behind a bipartisan package of bills known as Housing Now. Essentially, this nine-bill proposal would make it easier to build duplexes, apartments, and smaller homes by limiting how much local governments can delay or block permits, a move that's drawn pushback from some regional planning groups and local officials. Despite the pushback, the polling indicates broad public support. Nearly two-thirds of voters, including a majority of Republicans, Democrats, and swing voters, favor a multi-unit housing like duplexes and apartments. Even more striking, 7 in 10 voters say they're more worried about housing affordability than changes to neighborhood character. Housing policy advocates echoed that message during a panel in Sterling Heights last week. AFP Michigan Director Tim Golding said many first-time buyers aren't looking for an oversized house on a large lot. They want a smaller, more affordable housing option closer to work and services. National Housing Policy Analyst Alana Blumsack pointed to Montana as a case study. Facing rapid population growth, that state rolled back zoning restrictions, legalized accessory dwelling units like basement apartments and backyard cottages, and reduced parking mandates, reforms that Michigan lawmakers are now considering. Supporters argue the stakes go beyond housing prices. They say increasing supply can ease pressure on shelters, reduce homelessness, and help more families stay in Michigan. As the Housing Now bills move through the legislature, the question isn't just what lawmakers think, but whether they're ready to act on what voters say they want. Now, throwing it back over to you, Jacob, what can you tell us about an op-ed that appeared in the Detroit News last week?
Yeah, so in case you missed it, we wanted to highlight an op-ed this week that appeared in last week's Detroit News. The op-ed was written by SBAM's board of directors, and we would definitely recommend giving it a read if you haven't had the chance to do so already. Our directors wrote about the squeeze that they are feeling and that all of you are feeling every day because of the ever-increasing cost of health insurance. I'm going to read an excerpt from the op-ed because it really paints the picture well. According to SBAM's most recent survey, 85% of small business owners report annual healthcare cost increases approaching $2,000 per employee. For a company with 25 employees, that's $50,000 a year, enough to hire another employee, expand capacity, or invest in growth. Instead, they absorb these costs just to stand still. Without cost contraction in the healthcare system, it will happen again next year. It is not sustainable. Small business owners want to offer strong competitive benefits. Healthcare coverage is not simply a line item. We care deeply about the people who work for us and the families who depend on those benefits. But as healthcare costs rise faster than revenues, productivity, and inflation, that commitment becomes harder to keep. So we've sent this op-ed to all of our state lawmakers as we continue to push for increased transparency and accountability in the healthcare system and for more flexibility for employers as they continue to try to fit reasonable benefits into their budgets. We'd encourage you to share this op-ed on your social media. Back to you, Francesca. Do you care to close us out for the week?
Absolutely. So before we go, we also wanted to highlight something that we have coming up for all of our SBAM members. We wanted to invite everyone to join SBAM Advocacy Champions training on May 19, right here in the SBAM office. During the training, we'll be covering how to apply for a gubernatorial appointment to a board or commission, how to testify in front of a committee, how to effectively meet with a legislator, and we'll include media training as well. We'd love for you to join us. And with that, Jacob and I wish you a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next week with more updates.